From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan, alongside my partner, the Professor, Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matt, today's drink is going to have a little bit of a twist. We have a wonderful, successful entrepreneur on the podcast today. But what's really interesting about his insights is he's going to come at us from a unique approach. Small business owners and entrepreneurs have tons of pressures on them on a daily basis. Clients, families, accounts receivable, accounts payables. It's coming at us from all directions. And when it comes at us, there is that unintentional yet assured physical result. We gain a little bit of weight. We have a little bit of stress. Our backs start aching. Our relationships start declining. So today on the podcast, we have Craig Cooke. He is the author of Business Kung Fu, and he's going to solve all our small business and entrepreneurial stress problems. Craig, welcome to the podcast. Tell the audience what was the motivation of Business Kung Fu, and how can we apply it on a daily basis?
Excellent. Well, thank you, Lou and Matt, for having me here today. I'm really excited to be here and happy to share with you and your audience, and hopefully your audience gains value out of today. And to answer your question, the inspiration of writing the book was really as I enter into a new chapter in life, because quick backstory, I started a digital marketing agency in 1996, a digital first company in the 20th century. You imagine that, right? I grew it and sold it in 2019, stayed on for a few years as in my role as CEO, and then left a couple of years ago. And I've now started this new chapter. And with that, I've defined my purpose as really creating things that inspire and empower others to help them overcome challenges and help them reach their potential. So that's what this book is a tool to help hopefully inspire and empower entrepreneurs, because it's in a business context, and other business professionals to overcome challenges in their journey. Essentially, it's a mindset book at its core, but there's a lot in it actually that applies to various aspects of business and life.
Craig, Matt and I can spot an entrepreneur from a mile away because it's so clearly defined. When that person sees a problem, they don't just walk by and leave that problem alone. They have to fix the problem. They have to find the solution to the problem. So what was your problem that Business Kung Fu sought to solve?
Yeah, so with that, entrepreneurs especially are put to the test, and it's in so many ways. There's the lack of belief in the self, all the negative self-talk. When they're, especially like for me, the first 5 years was brutal. It was just a super grind, and there was a lot to overcome. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is just how you're put to the test as an entrepreneur. It was the hardest thing ever that in my life that I've done. But my training in martial arts really helped me have the proper mindset to help overcome. So it's really, at the end of the day, like I said, it's that core mindset that's essential, that what the book really is about, to help people overcome when they're put to the test. But there's a variety of different aspects in the book that there's other problems in too. But if I was going to narrow it down to one single thing that you just asked, that would be it, just how to overcome.
Can you give us an example on a stress factor at work or at the business that your Kung Fu tactics can help us overcome? You know, a client doesn't pay our invoices and our accounts receivables are tight. Somebody calls in sick. Your accountant failed to meet a filing deadline, like the day-to-day stuff that we all deal with.
Yeah, so that's like the stress pressure points that we encounter on a day-to-day basis with relationships with our employees, clients, vendors, also the demands of the operations, like you said, accounts receivable, payables, all those things, right? So with that, there's this big emotional, mental challenge that a business professional entrepreneur faces. And for me, part of martial arts is a practice called Qigong. And there's actually 3 branches of Qigong, which is martial, medical, and spiritual. And my early days when I was studying Chinese Kung Fu, I was exposed to the martial Qigong aspect. And there's a lot of health and wellness, but it's more of a martial context. But I started studying the medical and spiritual around 2014. And it came across me at the right time when I really needed it, because I was really out of balance and off-centered with myself, just emotionally, mentally, because of all these things I just mentioned. And that work within 6 months got me completely centered and balanced. And it was such a game changer for me. I decided to learn that work and take a deep dive into it. And I'm a practitioner, actually, and I'm in a doctorate program for Chinese energy medicine today, because it was such a huge impact. But as far as like tools and techniques, to answer your question, there's all kinds of different practices out there. Qigong is wonderful because it really works with the 3 bodies. That is the way it's termed in traditional Chinese medicine. And that's the physical body, the energy body, and the spirit body. And there's all these interactions, and it's the integration of mind, body, and breath. And there's consider it like moving meditation. You have static meditation also, where, sitting and, what people consider classic meditation. And that's great. And that's a part of it, and it works. But there's also moving meditation. It's dynamic meditation, where you're combining breath. You could be combining strong visualizations, sound, and movements, gentle movements, easy things that really engage the body. Because it's not enough to just engage the mind. It's really about engaging your entire being. And as you engage your entire being, all this the stress and all these things that we were talking about a couple of minutes ago start to dissipate and get discharged and released from the body. Because what happens is, as we have our interactions with people, places, things, environments, situations, we, especially on the negative side, and they persist, it creates all this energetic clusters in the energy body that kind of coalesce and get denser and denser. And as that persists over time, that gets worse and worse, and it messes with our mind, and eventually it can even manifest as some sort of physical ailment, because there's the way it's considered in traditional Chinese medicine that the spirit, our thoughts and emotions, our heart and mind, affects the energy, the energetic matrix that's outside of us and within us. We have a whole energetic anatomy, just like a physical anatomy. And then that energy affects the physical matter, the physical tissues. So again, if it persists over time, it can actually even manifest as some sort of physical ailment. So the Qigong really works with all 3 bodies to purge, get rid of all that negative energy, tonify, strengthen those 3 bodies, and then regulate, which is balance, because our body is always seeking that state of homeostasis.
So, Craig, when you found the proverbial center,
Mm-hmm.
how did that translate to your business? Was it more successful? Did you see an increase in revenue? Did everyone like you more? Did you walk into work with a, Zen outfit? What was going on?
Great question. And yeah, it's a really great question, because it's one thing to just like talk about all this stuff and it sounds great, but what's the grounded practical application and result? So to answer your question, when I got into this in 2014, I was right in the middle of a fast growth spurt in our company. We were on the Inc. 5000 list. I think maybe it was our 3rd year in a row. We were on the list 5 years in a row, Inc. 5000 fastest growing private company list. And
wow.
Yeah, thank you. And with that, you can imagine all the stress and pressures, going through that growth period. So there's a number of things. One, I came into work just normal. Like I didn't like change my outfits or nothing, because it's just I like to, and this is where I relate with a lot of professionals that I work with, because I'm just a normal person. I'm not some guy that's been meditating up in a cave in a mountain for 30 days. And then I come down wearing like beads and, robes and all this stuff. And it's like, no, I'm just another guy in the world dealing with the same problems you are. And this is a grounded, practical approach. So, I came into work just like I always would in my normal attire, but there's a number of things that were a result. That's one, clarity of mind, because when you're stressed and you're in pressure, you can get all over the place, and jumping from one thing to one thing. And when you're stressed, you get triggered quicker, when you're interacting with others. And then also your decision-making ability gets impaired. You're making more rash decisions, not thinking things through, just too much in a rush, where it really helped me get centered to where there's that still point where you can pause. And that's where creativity happens and innovation can come about, and you can solve problems better, more effectively. And then with interactions with others, more calm, more seeking solutions as opposed to getting triggered and just brushing things away. And I had staff members notice it and tell me like, wow, yeah, you're different. There's something that's changed with you. And I would just kind of like smile to myself, like, and sometimes I'd chuckle a little bit. Oh, thanks. Yeah. and I knew why, because I was just,
Craig,
balance.
Oftentimes success is contagious. Have you found that family, friends, and work colleagues have followed your lead with Qigong?
Yeah, that's interesting. So like family members, not so much. I mean, they understand it and they respect it and everything, but it's just not their cup of tea, say, right? And everyone's different. And this is what worked for me. Some people like yoga, some people like strength training, which I do also. It's one of the aspects of health and wellness in my life, right? There's other people as far as friends, like work professional associates and friends in the professional world that have embraced it and actually come to see me for the energy work, actually, because they saw how it was a great game changer for me, and then they've experienced it for themselves, and they continue to come and see me periodically, kind of like for like a tune-up in a sense.
So can I ask you a question? A
Sure.
lot of people have heard of Tai Chi, and I've taken a Tai Chi class or two in my life, but I've never really heard of Qigong. So what are the main differences? Are they just two different arts?
They're very similar, actually. So Tai Chi integrates the mind, body, and breath also.
Okay.
But it has a martial application. All those movements that look pretty and smooth and soft and flowing actually is a very powerful martial art when it's applied properly and people understand the applications of it. It's really an amazing martial art, actually. But they're very closely related, because through the integration of the mind, body, and breath, and the breathing and everything that Tai Chi does, it's very similar. Like when people see Qigong, they kind of confuse it for Tai Chi. They say, oh, wow, that looks like Tai Chi, because it does. Although Qigong, the movements are more simple, because with Tai Chi, the movements can get very sophisticated, again, because of the martial context.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So, Craig, also, let me ask you, you started a digital agency before the word even existed back in 1996.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you ran it for 26 years.
26 years, yes. It was a marathon.
That's pretty damn impressive, man.
Right? Thanks. Yeah, I equate each year to a mile. So it's a marathon.
So what the hell were you thinking in this category that never existed in 1996? Give us the background scoop.
Yeah, sure. So I was in 1995. I was 24 years old, and newly out of college, and I was experimenting online, just getting on through America Online, that ancient company way back when.
Did you get a CD in the mail?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yes. Yeah. The coasters. Yes. Yeah. You get those every week.
Listen, I heard a great story about that the other day, right? It was the only way they can compete, because Microsoft owned everything.
Yeah.
Right. So they had to actually mail out CDs to everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
think of the marketing, the packaging cost back then on that. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, I know, because actually my company, we got into CD-ROM development.
Okay.
And yeah, I know all about the costs of CD replication and packaging because we used to broker it. But yeah, to get back to 95, getting on the internet, and I was also a musician. I'm these days a rusty musician, but I was playing with one of my friends a lot from college, and I had picked up this CD-ROM actually from a computer store. And it was a CD-ROM of all these independent musicians. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And very interesting. And I shared it with my friend. And then I was like, this would be cool to do something like this online. And, one thing led to another. And it's like, yeah, let's do it. So I actually started the company with a couple of friends from college. We each had $1,300 and I had a computer. So that's what we started it with, $1,300 each in a computer.
What was the idea? What was the concept?
And the idea was creating a online showcase of independent artists. So it's called rhythmnet.com. So people could go to rhythmnet.com and they can discover all these independent musicians and listen to song samples and buy their CDs through a secure server. In 1996, that's when we launched in 1996. Back then, the music that everyone heard was all programmed for the radio and MTV. There was no choice, right? It was all just top down, fed to everybody. So here we are, it's like an anti-establishment, fight the machine type of idea, and give power to the people to discover and choose, what they like. And it was just an idea ahead of its time because there was no MP3s. There was no broadband. We started, it was 14.4, and then it went to 28K, and then it went to 56K, and that first year time frame. And everyone was afraid to buy stuff online, way back then. There's only 30 million people worldwide online at the time too.
Wow.
Yeah. And, we didn't have any money and we didn't know anybody, and, we were dumb and making all kinds of mistakes. And we struggled with that model for the first couple of years. But what happened was, after the first year, people that we knew, as the internet started to become more popular, said, "Oh, you guys know this internet stuff. Can you do a website for our company?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, yeah." And then we would knock out some of those, and then another year of that, keep fielding those requests. We realized, we need to adapt. We need to change gears here because we need to eat, and it's such a tough go. Musicians, they didn't have any money. It's hard to get money off of the consumer market, and musicians, they didn't have money because they blew all their money on their CDs. So we started focusing on being a web design company, and we still kept the music thing on the side, and we're still working on it. But in 1998, I saw this vision where, interesting. For the future of advertising agencies is going to be a combination of online and offline. And then let's work on developing a bunch of capabilities around that. So we started working, we were really good with web development because of where we started. So that was easy. And we started doing websites for companies, but then we started picking up other capabilities like email marketing, search marketing, got into CD-ROM development. Since we were doing the music thing, we were replicating CDs and packaging for the musicians. And then I learned this program called Director by Macromedia that was for CD-ROM authoring. And then we got into that and doing CD-ROMs applications for companies. We did these beautiful full screen apps and did a lot for the pharmaceutical industry, actually. And had a great 10-year run of running jobs that were 100,000, 500,000, a million units of CDs that would get passed out and become coasters at the end of the day, probably. But it was really cool because we had our own proprietary methodology where we were able to update the content of the CD and track the user behavior of the CD. No one else was doing it out there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Especially back then, it was super cutting edge. We just, by time 2004 came around, we rebranded as Rhythm Interactive, an agency. And then it just started going in. We were working with a lot of small companies, but we had been working with bigger and bigger companies over time. And then we really adapted again and changed our focus to be larger companies. And we ended up working with mostly middle market to large enterprise companies.
Wow. So when did you see a major pivot and change in the business? Because you were struggling for the first couple of years, right? 96. Then we start really getting into the dot-com boom. Everybody's hearing about online, emails getting pretty popular. Where did you really see a pivotal change in your business for you guys to be able to hit that ink list?
So it was slow managed growth that first 10 years or so. Again, young, making tons of mistakes, new industry, not knowing a lot of stuff, could have done so many things different, but it's all good. It was a lot of great lessons I learned, and who knows, maybe if we would have been one of those .com companies that rocked it up, we may have went bankrupt, like most did, .com crash. But we grew slowly, survived the .com crash, continued to grow. There was that pivotal moment in 98 and then in 2004 when we really rebranded as an agency.
Okay.
And that was big, but we were still kind of that slow growth. Then, the whole Great Recession came about in 2008. That was interesting. We were actually able to weather that pretty well. Kind of impacted us more in 2009. But we were still growing pretty good. We actually bought our first commercial office building in 2009 at the height of the credit crunch, which was a huge risk, but we were able to get it done. But that was a challenging time period. But it was in 2012 where we really started to go for a big run. And what happened was we really made an effort to create more awareness about our company because we were kind of under the radar. We get subcontracted so much by other companies, other agencies that were they were traditional agencies, and they were struggling trying to get into digital, and we were the ones that knew how to do this stuff. So we were white labeled quite a bit, and it enabled us to get into these big clients, like all these big pharma companies and other big companies, but we didn't have those direct relationships. So in 2012 we really started creating awareness around our company and marketing our company, and really did a huge marketing push and created awareness, established many more direct relationships, which brought more profit to the table, which enabled us to scale and grow. And that's from 2012 to 2017 is when we really hit that great growth stride of the 5 years in a row on Inc. 5000.
Wow. And then you wound up selling the company? You exited?
Yes. In 2019, the company was sold on the actual anniversary date of starting the company, January.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The deal funded and closed on our anniversary date. 23 years later, in early 2019.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was that set up that way, or was it? Or did it
it just happened that way. Very, very synchronistic. It was cool, and a great, really high-end, world-class agency out of New York City acquired us. So it was a strategic purchase.
Nice. Now, were you guys doing media buying? Were you doing creative? Were you doing everything across the board?
Yeah. So the way we, as back in, I'd say 2001, as we were building up those capabilities that I mentioned, is really also establishing a philosophy of our philosophical approach of how our agency worked with clients. And we defined what we called 3 pillars, and there was strategy, design, and technology. Because at the time, way back then, you had a bunch of traditional agencies that were really good with strategy and creativity, but they sucked at technology. They just couldn't get it. It was so hard for them to embrace the new way of doing things, right? Then on the other hand, there's all these great digital shops that were great with technology, obviously, and great creative, but no strategy. It was all just kind of like the shiny object syndrome. So we thought you really, for a true 21st century approach that is going to have a sustainable, long-lasting impact, you had to have these 3 pillars: combine strategy, technology, and creativity to formulate solutions that would solve business goals and objectives and address audience needs. And that philosophy really carried us through. And then I think right around, it was around 2002, 3 or so when that was defined. And I would say probably by 10 years later is when I started seeing a lot of other companies starting to talk like that in their own words, but essentially, very similar. So we were a good 10 years ahead in that thinking, but that was essential, that 3-pillar approach. And then it was really an integrated approach, also integrated marketing with digital at the core. But we weren't relying on just one thing. We would offer a multitude of services working in conjunction with each other to, again, solve problems and drive results. Again, not focusing on a trick of the day or shiny object. It was an integrated solution.
So, man, you've seen the change. You've started with websites. You've seen Facebook and Google come out with search, right? You see TikTok now. Where do you think the future is going, marketing? And what do you think AI holds in it? Because you were on the forefront prior. Yeah.
It's so interesting because back in the late 90s, it was really fast back then. It was like every week there was some new website coming out, some new software, some new tech. It was really fast. Today it's the same thing, but it's just become much more complex, way more sophisticated than it was back then, because the media landscape is expanded exponentially, and then technology has continued to get more robust and complex. Back in the day, I did everything, design, programming, and but it was like this, right? Now it's this giant world of all kinds of programming languages, all kinds of different tech platforms. And I see AI as a huge driver of change and innovation. Obviously, as everyone's been seeing it for the past year, that's no revelation there. But what I kind of equate it to is there's these two mindsets. One mindset that's very fearful of AI, and there's valid reasons there for that. And then another mindset that's really embracing it. And what I kind of see is a parallel to those early days, when I'll take the design industry as an example, just from my own experience. There was the old way of doing publishing, with paste up and letterboards and, the traditional way that people had been doing it for decades and decades and decades. And then, the Apple Macintosh came, and on the desktop, people could do desktop publishing and do all these things. And the traditional people are like, that's crap, or that's just not good enough, or that's not the way to do it, or, all kinds of demonizing that technology. And then the people that embraced it, and as the technology improved and people adopted it, it just enabled all the publishing that was done previously to be executed at a much more rapid pace, and enabled more quality control as things developed over time. So I see AI as kind of the similar thing, is that there's all these wonderful tools that are coming out, and the people that embrace it, and it's going to help drive efficiencies like crazy, and a multitude of different levels. And it's just going to be wild how much change and innovation. It's going to be so fast. It already is, but it's just going to continue to grow and evolve. And the people that embrace it and understand how to get things done quicker and more effectively are going to thrive.
So, Craig, we want to be respectful of your time. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the socials, how they can go out and find your book and get in touch with you?
Sure. Thank you. So, my book, Business Kung Fu, it's available in hardback, paperback, and Kindle format on Amazon.com. So if you just go to Amazon and search Business Kung Fu, it'll come up. Or if you go to Google and search Business Kung Fu, it'll come up top of the page, the Amazon link. And as far as getting a hold of me, two best ways are through my website, csquaredpro.io. That's the letter C, and then squared spelled out, pro.io, csquaredpro.io. And there's a form on there people can fill out, and I monitor that closely, and I'll respond. And then also LinkedIn, I monitor that daily, and that's Craig Cooke with an E at the end of Cook. So LinkedIn/Craig Cooke. Those are the two best ways to get a hold of me. And then I'm on social media as Craig Cooke on Twitter and Instagram, TikTok. It's C2.777. But yeah, I'm pretty easy to find.
Hey, so Craig, I got a question for you. On your Facebook account, what is Chili Farmer?
Yeah, I know that's my old username from way back in the day. Like,
was that your AOL name?
Because I love spicy food, and I used to grow. Actually, I do. I just planted another garden last year, but all kinds of different hot chili peppers because I just love them. So that's the Chili Farmer, because I was always growing chilies.
Awesome. Craig, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Last question before I let you run. If you had to pick one chili, what chili would it be?
Oh, yeah, to like eat for the rest of my life type of thing?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a tough one. Yeah, I think I would go with yeah, back in the day I would have said an habanero, but I've cooled it down I think I would go with just a straight up jalapeno, just because they're versatile. They can get really hot, but they can be mild too. So yeah.
Jalapenos, guys.
Yeah.
Everybody, that's a wrap. Liquid Lunch Project. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of The Liquid Lunch Project.